completely spooked out by some dreams where there has been a man coming into my room. I am half awake. I feel like I know that he's there, and I've got now Eleanor Hammond, who is a psychic, on the phone to try and help me get to the bottom of this and figure out what's going on. Am I possessed? Eleanor, what is happening to
me? No, you are not possessed.
Oh, thank God. Okay. All right. Thanks, Eleanor. Goodbye.
Nice talking to you. See you later. No, it's a really, really big answer. So feel free to cut me off if you need to. But
no. So what do you think is happening?
Basically, I don't think you're possessed. I do actually believe you're getting visited. But first of all, I have to explain how it happens, and that it happens to all of us. There's brainwave states, and you would have heard about the obvious ones. Like people talk about REM, sleep, but there's the brainwave state start at beta. When you're in beta brainwave states where we are right now, you are looking around yourself, you're classifying and categorizing, and your brain's very active. And, you know, if you go for a drive somewhere, say you drive from Mount Isa Cloncurry, and you go, oh, there's a green truck, and oh, that's a kangaroo, and I'll have to tell my partner about, you know, that turn off, and that's where the camp is, and we record information. That's the beta brainwave state. We are very alert, and we are very conscious. Interestingly enough, we're not completely present. So it's actually not a very safe trip. If you've done the trip from Mount Isa...
This is like when you drive somewhere and then you go, oh, all of a sudden I'm home, and I didn't realise, like I wasn't... Yeah,
that's alpha.
Out and you're there.
That's the alpha brainwave state. And people go, oh my God, it's so lucky I didn't have an accident. And I go, no, actually, it's more likely you would have had an accident in beta than in alpha. Because in alpha, you're not bothering wasting processing time with the brain by categorizing everything that you see so that you can spit it out as a funny story for later, you know, over drinks and dinner. What you're doing is you're staying completely present. You are completely in the moment. So when you're in the...
This is very scientific, Eleanor. When I thought I was going to be speaking to a psychic, I'm really surprised by how in-depth this is.
Master in metaphysics, dude. Sometimes people have to look at psychics and go, they're not stupid. Okay, so I'm actually a seeker. I've always said that knowledge is my holy grail. So anyway, from that point, from alpha, and when you do things like yoga nidra, which is basically doing yoga lying down, they're trying to achieve that alpha brainwave state. There's actually alpha dynamics, which is a healing modality that tunes into that space and does healing at that level. There's lots of practitioners of alpha dynamics in the world. In alpha, that's where we try to get to when we meditate. Now, we get to alpha in all sorts of different ways. Sometimes we zombie out watching TV. And that's when you can be in that complete zombified brain state, watching telly at night, end of a hard day. Your brain's going, oh, I'm completely down in it now. I'm nice and relaxed. And then, boom, Uncle Arthur turns up at your right shoulder. A whole different reason why we don't see them in the front of us and why we always see them out of the corner of the eye, and that's to do with where we focus and the brainwave states. But if something pops up out of the corner of your eye, if you stay in the zombified alpha state and go, male or female, related to me, not related to me, then you're more likely to be able to interact with that spirit. Most of the time, people go, what was that? And they turn and look at it. And of course, it's gone. And of course it's gone because you've woken up your brain back into beta, back where it's categorizing and where it's not completely present. Spirit time works on no time. And it's a really hard thing to explain. Some people have said that everything happens...
What is happening to me? Because
I'm getting there.
Something is coming in.
Yes, but...
And standing over me
but
in
you're
my
asleep.
room.
You're asleep and awake at the same time. Like you said, you were aware that you were asleep. That is the alpha space. And this is the same space that kids go to when they get night terrors. Because they drop down into alpha, they all of a sudden see, you know, gnarly old great granddad, and they freak out. So I have had so many parents come to me who were skeptical going, oh my God, what's happening? It's not to be worried about. You have dropped into alpha. Generally what takes place is you see and hear things. It's not scary. Don't interrupt this. It's not usually scary at that time. When we come out of it, often we add that was scary and that makes us feel frightened. So if an emotion can't happen unless a thought happens first, then the thought, that was scary, means we become physiologically frightened in the body. So you're getting visits, absolutely. If you go back to that first time that it absolutely happened, were you frozen then?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were a little bit out of your body. You were astrally projecting. The very first time it happened, not the subsequent times after you'd already gained an opinion and put that on it, but that very first time were you actually frightened while it was happening? You were frightened while it was happening? Okay.
Yeah, it was really scary. This thing walked into the room and stood over my bed, and I wasn't able to move.
Yeah.
And it just stood looking at me at the foot of my bed, and I was terrified.
Yeah. See, we're kind of scared, probably because you've watched maybe a lot of horror movies or because you've got a preconceived notion of what that's about. I've never been able to watch horror movies.
But then it spoke to me, and it said you're going to die.
Well, guess what? It's the most logical spirit there is, because we're all going to die.
Yeah, I know, but we don't go around telling people. I mean, does it have
well, you might not.
social cues?
Yeah, well, I'm afraid I'm a bit of a downer at parties. No, birth means death. Death means birth. If you look at Einstein and all of the work that he did, he proved that energy always moves in and out of form. It doesn't die. It doesn't stop. It transforms. And you ask a priest, and I'm a reverend, by the way, you ask a reverend or a priest, what is God? And they'll say, never-ending, ever-moving, moving in and out of form, constant, ever-changing, omni, meaning all, omnipresent, omni-aware, omni, this, that, and the other. You ask a scientist, what is energy? And they will say, never-ending, ever-moving, always moving in and out of form. So the fact that we've got electrical impulses in our brain, for a start, means that we're not going to stop, okay? When you fall into alpha, you start going into the no time space. If you've ever had a dream in 5 minutes that you thought took 3 hours, your dream took 3 hours, but it was only 5 minutes elapsed time, then you'll know what I'm talking about. The spirit world is a no time space. And when we communicate with them, bodies stop. Often in readings, when I'm getting channeled, I have to actually go, hang on a minute, pull back and take a breath. Because everything gets frozen. There's only been a couple of times over the last couple of decades that I've actually felt frightened. And not frightened because, oh no, scary spirit, because they're just people like us. We are connecting via spirit in the exact same way the spirits connect to us.
Okay, so I hear that you're saying that it's not scary, but I want it to stop. So what do I do? What can I do about this?
The very first thing you have to do is, you've heard of a mantra, hey?
Yeah?
A mantra, they say that any habit, whether you're fat and need to go to the gym like me, any habit, you've got to do it every day for 6 weeks in order for it to become a habit. The same thing with a mantra. A mantra is you repeat the same phrase to yourself every day for 6 weeks in order for it to become a new neurological brainwave in the brain. So the very first mantra that you need to give yourself is, I have free will. So you need to be repeating to yourself, I have free will, I have free will, I have free will. And what happens then is you get to choose. It's not an overnight thing, but these things are not... there's no real quick fixes. I do recommend selenite. I don't know how it works, but it does work. It's a crystal. It's very high vibration. I've even had truckies who have been attacked by things not leave home without their selenite in their pillowcase. You know,
selenite?
Selenite. 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 Okay. It's a crystal. I don't know why it works, but it does. Yes, you can smudge with white sage, not with meditational sage. I think we have an ancestral memory, like an intrinsic passed down memory about sage. And sage was adopted by the church because, of course, when you smoke out a room, it gets rid of flies, and therefore there's hardly any disease, and therefore sage was used around coffins, and therefore we've got thousands of years worth of ancestral memory around the use of white sage to clear things. And it is true that when you do smudge a room with white sage, or when you do the smoking, which is the Australian tradition, it does slow spirits down. And it's like, if I was going for a walk if you and I, Tim, were at the park and there was a path that was full of mud and right beside it was a path that had no mud, we wouldn't take the path with the mud in it. We would go around it. And what saging does is it fills up the place with like a etheric mud, for want of a better term. So selenite in the pillowcase, do a little smudge. You don't have to die of cancer through it. You can just do a little smudge. What that means is you light the sage, you blow it out, and then the little smoke, you send it through your room. But you also say, I remove anything that does not belong, and know that you have free will.
Okay, so my mantras are, I remove anything that does not belong, I have free will, I sage the room, and I get some selenite. These are my tips?
They're your, absolutely. The selenite all by itself has been known to work for people. And like I said, I've got one particular fellow that was attacked all his life. And he's a big, scary bloke himself. So he always has it in his pillowcase and it works for him. Like I said, I don't know how it works, but it works. I don't know whether it's a placebo, but I've handed it to people that didn't know the metaphysical properties of it and it still worked. So go figure. But I've also had other people that just try to remember that, no, I choose not to deal with you. And then the problem's gone.
Okay, Eleanor, I'm going to try all these things and I'm going to check back in with you.
Beautiful.
We'll see what happens. Thank you so much.